In fantasy worlds where the settings are often vast, complex, and governed by unique rules and histories, family trees provide a sense of continuity and structure that help authors establish a coherent lineage, defining the histories and relationships between various characters, families, and entire kingdoms. This lineage can be used to explain the existence of magical abilities, ancient currencies, and political alliances, therefore deepening the lore of the world. For example, in George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series, the intensive family trees of the noble houses such as Starks, Lannisters, Targaryens, and add layers to the narrative showing how historical events and ancestral conflicts shape the current power of dynamics and motivations. Now I've gave a similar introduction before, and that was when I was describing the legendary lions and how their family pretty much shaped and controlled the entire western region, and how they made Zen such a powerful kingdom that led to, well, what we know today as. But if you want to know more of that story, you have to go watch a video and you have to just read the book. But thank you for all the support on the book, by the way. It's been incredible. I really am loving it. So let me just jump into the video, into the legendary Vassalette family. Now, the Vassil Isles, I'll put up a picture. The Vassil Isles are just about there, and they control a lot of very important land. The Vassil Isles were not known as the Vassil Isles at the beginning. The Vassil Isles only became the Vassil Isles when Lord Tharos' grandson became king, but before then there was only Lord Tharos Colus Vassalette, also known as the Mercenary King. Now, at this point, this was the early formation of the 20 kingdoms that made up the Pangean Republic. Now, Lord Tharos, Colus Vassalette, and the Vassil Isles were part of this 20 kingdom nation, but it was not official in the sense of what it is now. The islands made up of a council. The most powerful part of the island was made up of the council, and the council pretty much declared themselves as standing kings, or the head of the council was virtually a standing king with authority of being the head of the Vassil Isles without actually ruling any part of the nation, as anyone could have taken that amount of power. This would change very quickly as the Mercenary King, why he was nicknamed the Mercenary King, with a monopoly of all the mercenaries, or most of the mercenary clans in the Vassil Isles, and he gathered that monopoly of power to bring to the council and give them an army which could subjugate the entirety of the Vassil Isles, creating a powerful, let's say, a powerful republic of the Vassil Isles, which had the figurehead of Thoros Colus Vassalette, who was still lord under title, but would stand on the council's stage as a sort of pseudo-king without the official title at that point in time. But then he had he had 4 children. Of those 4 children, obviously, Lord Thoros Vassalette II was born. But let's talk about his other children. We'll go down this family line first, this family line, this family line, then this family, and then end with this incredible family line. So, 2 of his children, Arcos Vassalette and Zaris Vassalette, died in battle during, the subjugation war, shall we call it. And straight after the subjugation war, obviously, it was nearing the end of the First Great War at that point in time. A lot of other families held power in this stage of the Vassalette family, but they had no real impact, no real change in history, so we skip over them and continue that. So we'll start off with the legendary Vasilis Vassalette. Remember the name Vasilis Vassalette is about to become important real quick. Vasilis Vassalette had 2 sons, Lord Damas Vassalette and Knight Commander. Let me, if I can get his name up. Knight Commander Danis Vassalette. Now, Knight Commander Danis Vassalette obviously had his own family line, and Lord Damas did I have the same name? Danis. So it was Danis and Damis. So Dimas Vassilet had his own son, who was Lord Kalokos Vassilet, who had two children, Caesius Vassilet and Lord Lesetros Vasilis Vassilet. Remember that name again? It's back here. Who had a daughter, which was Panna Vasilis Vassilet. Her name is going to become very important very quickly. Now, that family line virtually ended there for now, but it didn't fully end. Obviously, they wanted full control because they had the highest lordship of the Vassilet side, and also had the knight commanders of the Vassilet side, which means they ruled the largest part of the army as well, making them, the side of the family, simply the most important side of the family. A lot happened in this timeline, and I'll explain why at this point, because the kind, the weather, and everything was born at this point. This timeline would have ran about 400 years. There's a lot more family members in between then, but again, they did not make enough impact to make it onto this list. Whew. Now, the Knight Commander obviously had two kids. The first kid, let's go to him. The first kid was Knight Commander Gellius Vassilet, who died in the Second War because he thought Knight Commanders should be fighting the front lines, and he was decapitated almost straight away. But his brother, Gellius Vassilet, did not die in the Second War. He lived a very long life and had 3 children. Of those 3 children, the first one who joined into the war at the ending stages of the Second Great War and died in that point, which was Nicholas Vassilet. His other son, Hermeseltos Vasilis Vassilet, took on the name Vasilis and obviously the last name Vassilet to join the Vasilis Vassilet family line. Now, obviously, and then his third son at the time was the Knight Commander, which was Knight Commander Spyrus Vassilet, who also died in battle because they had the same ideology as his uncle. Now, the Vasilis Vassilet family line, taking on the name Vasilis Vassilet, distinct them from the normal Vassilet family line because they wanted to continue this power that they had. Hemicetius Vasilis Vassilet had his only son, which was Knight Commander Danis Vasilis Vassilet, who married Lady, remember her, right here, who married Lady, who was his cousin actually, who married his cousin Lady Panna Vasilis Vassilet to make the family much, much stronger. Now, as the Knight Commander and also the Lord, so he was Lord Knight Commander at this point in time because that family line collapsed into him. The Lordship also continued into this family line because of the lady's family line, and they decided to split their family into 2, shall we say. So, this side of the family, because they had the honor of having 3 sons, so it made it a lot easier. This side of the family took the lordship as Lord Kairis Vasilis Vassilet had 2 children who continued the lordship, which was Lord Kairis Vassilet II, who is still alive to this day, and his daughter Aristia Vassilet, Vasilis Vassilet, who is also still alive, but we'll continue the bloodline in a second. On the other bloodline were the Knight Commander's bloodline, who was Knight Commander Asisus Vasilis Vassilet, who had one child who gained the Knight Commander role as Trios Vasilis Vassilet, and they continue on that bloodline of being Knight Commanders, while this bloodline was the third bloodline where, well, a lot of weird stuff happened in this bloodline. So, Lelios Vasilis Vassilet married Petia Collius. They lived a long life, and they died. They only had one son together, which was Apimius Vasilis Vasilet, who only had one son, which was Vanis Vasilis Vasilet, who opted to not have any children of his own and live in a nice villa quietly, ending his direct bloodline. And that was mostly because of the huge stigma that his grandfather had of, well, being intimate with another man, which in that island was very looked down upon, which was Bastidius Papo, and they lived an entire life together. But that bloodline ended between because obviously Vanis did not want to continue such bloodline because, well, they were already ostracized and stuff, so he decided to end it with him. So he never had any children. He just grew old and alone because of ideologies. But the Knight Commander bloodline. The Knight Commander had several children. Now, the Knight Commander kept trying to have children because he needed to have several children in order to continue the Knight Commander line, which led to the Knight Commander Alcaeus Vasilis Vasilet, who married Zeltra, who had two children at that point, which was Nicephorus and Nikovos Vasilis Vasilet. Now, none of them have children at the moment, but there's still time. They sit on the council outside of war, but they could still, let's still wait. Well, Nice Trios is waiting to become the next Knight Commander, so he knows that he will be in the army soon enough, while Nekokovos sits on the council because he knows he's not going to get the Knight Commander role, but instead wants to continue as being a council member. And the council accepted him as obviously a Vasilis Vasilet that will have more access to the Vasilet name through them. Now, the reason why he sits on the council was actually because of his uncles. All three of these uncles are council members. The Fortis family obviously married Panakeo and created the Fortis family, which now have a claim to the Vasilet throne and also sit on the council, as he is a council member with his son now, Lassius Vasilet, who has joined the military and fights for the Vasil name, and Antis Fortis, who also fights for the Vasil name. And then obviously Sekovos Konopio had one child, Crocus, who technically should just be sitting as a council member, but he also fights in the front lines for the Vasil names. But he doesn't care that much because his son, Kovos II, is being trained to sit on the council after his father dies. And obviously on the other side, we have the Petropio name, which continues on down, where Pandos and Thelios. Now on the other side, the lords, the largest lords in the Vasil Isles. Well, obviously, I said he had a son, which is Croesus II, Crelius II, in fact, who had two children, Sotinus and Nikon. Now, these two, they sit in a sort of council line as well, but they're also Vasilis Vasilet, so they have claim on the lordship, but the lord will give it to his oldest son when he dies, so his younger son is kind of left in the air, but not for long, because the older son only had two children, who both his children are actually in the military, as Arceus Vasilis Vasilet and August Vasilet are both in the military line, and he also only has one grandchild, which is Cross Vasilis Vasilet, while his brother made work with four children who are all four boys. Now all four boys have marriages in line with several grandchildren ready to take that lordship from his brother had anything happened to his direct bloodline. A lot of his children say in the military. However, his grandchildren, a lot of them are being trained up to sit in the council, well, to make sure that they have people on both sides of that world. But skip to this side. Now that I finish on that side, I might as well name the name. We have Cross Vasilis Vasilet, we have Cosmis Vasilis Vasilet, Dipius Vasilis Vasilet, Emerius Vasilis Vasilis, Anthanis Vasil Vasilet, Zoni Vasil Vasilet, and Nikia Vasil Vasilet. Now, all of them, sorry, there's more actually. There's covers, component, I already named these ones. So, all of them, all of these current generation of kids, and also their parents and the grandparents, and one of their great grandparents are all alive right now, and they all sit either in the council or directly on the table of the Vasilet family name, which allows them to have a lot of outside control of the Vasilet family. But one person has stood in the way of their, let's say, complete dominance. And that person will get to in a bit. But let's start here. Obviously, I went down this line and everything. We'll start with Lord Thanos, who had a son, which is Lord Thanos II. Lord Thanos II virtually lived a virtually quiet life. He was the uncrowned king. Everyone thought he should have been king, but he was not officially made king. The man who was made king was King Theodos Tritus Theodorus Tritus Vasilet the Worthy. He had a very long rule as the Worthy, as he joined all the Vasilet family and all the outsiders, and he gave power to the council, which was almost equal to a king's power, allowing them to have absolute control. And him becoming official king made the Vasil Isles an official under the world's sky, an official part of the 20 kingdoms of the Pangean Republic, even though they were still part of the Pangean Republic and they were technically the 20th kingdom. The king at the time was just a pseudo king, was no official king. Now, the Worthy is nicknamed obviously the Worthy because he's the first of his name to actually sit officially on the Vasil throne and to rule over it for decades. He had several children. Well, he had two known children. Those two known children were Angelos, who had a son, which is Lasmodrios, who his son actually was poisoned while out into the front lines. Obviously his father felt horrible and died a few years later, and his wife took her life a few years after that. But on the other side, we have the kind King Theodos Tritus Vasilet II, also known as the Kind Vasilet. Now, the Kind Vasilet ruled an outstanding 65 years in power at that point, which is longest known rule to this day, I believe. It is a massive rule. So, he had his own child who was a king, who was known as King Theodos Tritus Vasilet III. Obviously, the Titus Vasilet name at this point was known from the Worthy, the Kind, and now the Fool. He virtually destroyed the Vasilet names, allowing the council members to actually marry into the Vasilet names. Pretty much gave them too much power, which he did not see coming. Somehow he did not see it coming, which almost led to the first civil war of that kind. Now, obviously, the second Vasilet, the Kind, which has got down this family line, and now come back to the Fool's family line. So he had, at that point, which was Helenia Vasilet, who married Gridon Tropolus, who then became the Tropolus family line. Tropolus was obviously, after the king died, his son, the Fool, this man, allowed the council members to start marrying at that point. We started off with the Tropolus family line, but the Tropolus family line virtually quickly died out not long after. But it already started the domino effect, because at that point, Caras, which was a lordship, the Valvanes, which was a council member, and obviously Tropolus, which is still another council member. On this side, the Caras family line continue on to Sonis Caras, which was the only son, which married Cassia. And Sonis and Cassia had two children. I believe he had two children. One of them died at childbirth when she was born, which is Cassia, and his only living son, Valios Caras, had two children, which was August Troperius Caras. Yes, that's a long-winded name. That's because it continued from that family line to continue that type of family line. He had two women in his life, and both had children. Yet there's a non-child who will come very much into the second book, because that's when it all goes down for the Vassalette family. But they already created a domino effect at that point. But his second wife, who is known, which is Phoebe Theodolio, who both had a son who sits both on the council and is the first of his kind to sit on the council and to join the military and fight in the front lines, which was Stelius Tropolus Caras, who is alive to this day, obviously. On the other side, his brother Evrios Anthetis Tropolus Caras had a son, Panas, and Eleta, who they also had like several children, 3 children. 2 of the children sit on the councils as Konos and Alos, one the other child, who is also male. Araphilis is actually in the military. Now, to go on this side, a lot of people on this side died, which was Angelus, Amos, and everyone. The Zenkos, Arios, Despair had a son, which was Bascilis, who died in battle. Danis, Danieris, Ephena, they married Ephena, who had Domonda Troperus, which, if I'm correct, would have been on this family line, which means he died in this book, in the first book which I wrote. He would have died in battle as well, but he would have died in a different way. And then we have Ponstas Tropolus, who had Agapros Tropolus. There was Agapros Tropolus died of poisoning not long after this spell in the book, which means, I mean, it's a bit of a spoiler, but they only domino effects more than anything else. But they die very early on in the book. That's why they still classed as deceased instead of being named. But obviously, down the Tropolus line, Lord Elias Tropolus had 4 children who are still at the beginning of the book are obviously alive, which is Apollos. Well, when he named his child at the time, it was before everyone knew what Apollo was. Like Apollos, Disarchis, Agapos, and Marius. All 4 of them, 3 of them, or 2 of them sit on the council. 2 of them are being trained in the military. But specifically, Apollos is not actually part of the Vasil military and more of the Pangean military. Yes, he is in fact a Gallant, which is very interesting for this family line to have a Gallant in their wake in the world. But skipping to this side, obviously the legendary Fool had 2 kids. One of them was killed by, well, the other one, because during the at the end of the Second War, at the very beginning of the Third War, at this point, would have been King Lastreus Facilet, who was known as a butcher because of how many people slaughtered, who included his own family members. But he was hated very hated. In fact, he almost destroyed the entire Vasil hold because there were so many people that hated even the name Vasilet, and that gave birth to his son, King Madasidius Vasilet, the first of his name, also known as the Spider, who gained absolute control of the Vasil Isles' kingdom under espionage, spies, and manipulation, and actually marry off a few of his own family members into council members that were loyal to him more so than they were loyal to the council. And obviously, the council members were Alios, who took the Vasilet name as well. At the time, he thought at the thank you for allowing me to join your family, and Platotli Vasilet, King Platotli Vasilet, the Mad King. Why was he Mad King? Well, that's where their story pretty much revolves around the Mad King's antics. So I cannot ruin why he's the Mad King, but he's been nicknamed for Mad King for a good reason. He had two children. On this side, the two children were Dionysus, Star, what's his name? Dionysus Daseus Vasilet, who had a son, which is Dionysus Daseus Vasilet II. Nothing has really happened there. No one even knows if they had kids or not. And then we had our current king, Madasidius Vasilet II. He has no nickname at the moment, but I think when he dies, he'll be nicknamed the Playboy, I guess. He had 3 wives. First wife, Ariana Ephonicus, who had a son which was Omnius Ephonicus, but because they were not officially wives, she kept her name and gave it to the son, which is Omnius, and Omnius was thrown out of the contention of being king because they were not married. He actually married his second wife, which was Arcaphina Decilis. Obviously, he's still alive, but he can't have the name. Well, he can't be in line of the king, even though he's the oldest son, because of her. Because they never got married. But they got married, which created the actual crown bloodline, shall we say, which gave birth to the absolute oldest, which was Apollo. But let's talk about the brothers first. So we have Spios. So Spios has 3 children, which is Venus, Dios, and Stodius. Spios, okay, let's skip Spios for a second and go to, so we have go to Thalia. Obviously, Thalia married a council member. Council member was Charlo, and Charlo had two children who are both women at the moment in time. He had another daughter, which was Metius Vasilet. After that, which was thrown out contention of the line of the throne because obviously it's more patriotic kingdom than matriarchic kingdom. So the third, and then we have him. Okay, the 4th person in this family line. Now it's gonna make sense. So Crown Prince, he was named Crown Prince, even though he's the younger twin of Apollo. That's because of what Apollo did. So Crown Prince was named the Crown Prince. He's also the Shadow King because he does a lot of economical, political, and kingly things than his father, whom seems to just like being around women all the time. And then we have the Crown Prince at that point who had 2 children, Colos Vasilet. Remember this name because in the second book he's going to be a very important character. But we have the oldest child, or the second oldest. Obviously, he was thrown out of contention of the crown, which put him as next in charge of the crown. But because, even though at the beginning was called the Luck of the Vassals, he got the nickname the Scum Prince, which basically thrown him out of contention of the crown, which went to now his younger brother Hermes, who is the Crown Prince. And when he becomes king, Colos will become the next king by default of being the king's firstborn son. Now he is first in, but currently he is first in line and second in line before he becomes king. If he were to die, the second in line will skip Apollo and actually go we'll skip Apollo, obviously, because Apollo is our contention. We're supposed to be second line and actually go to Gaia. Why does it go to Gaia? So, King Midas married his dear Salvia Vasilet to strengthen the Vasilet name, and of course, his father, the Mad King, did a lot of Mad King things, and his grandfather was a fool who pretty much crumbled the name Vasilet. But marrying her, even though he wanted to marry her, didn't have much political strength. It will strengthen the name as the southern borders of the Vasilets are no longer as loyal to the king anymore. So marrying her actually made them more loyal, which gave the crown to Gaia. But because she's second in line of the crown, now the southern borders want her to be first in line of the crown, but obviously the crown prince is still alive, so they kind of have to work together to make sure that is at peace. Who knows, maybe they might marry when she's older, but she's second in line right now. But because she is a girl and a woman, it probably wouldn't even matter, because after her, third in line would be Spios. Now, Spios being third in line will also create a lot more problems than it's worth, really. But fourth in line after those three will be Colossus, and it goes so on and so on. It's a bit of confusion here because this man decided to not actually name his crown prince Spios, which would have just solved all problems because it would have gone to Venus or would have gone down this line, but instead named the crown prince to be the second born, or the third born technically, because they were twins, which was Hermes. Why did he do that? Just because Spios, because a lot of things happened between Spios and him, which are kind of not kicked him out of the contention of the family line, but didn't gain his favor, and instead the crown prince here became, well, the crown prince. But yeah, that's it. That is all. That is the legendary, undisputable, undeniable Vasilet name. Ooh, there's a lot more that goes on to this family, but it's all in the books. I'm trying to spread out the whole family and everything that goes on into multiple books, so it's a lot simpler to understand. But that is it for the first book. For the start of the second book, obviously there'll be additions later on of this, so don't worry, it will continue on. It will make a lot more sense in the near future. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for all the support, for buying my book. Seriously, thank you for buying my book so much. It's really pushing me through and making me like work a lot harder. It's like, fair enough, all my videos for the past 2 months have just been about FIFA, but that's because I'm working on something else which requires a lot more of attention, which has to do with the book, but they'll come back to this. But obviously I don't want to ignore my YouTube channel or my other social medias, obviously, because they're the ones that give the audience an idea of what I'm actually doing. I'm not just throwing stuff out in the blind. Anyways, thank you again for watching. Thank you for all the support. Stay easy, stay safe. It's a cold winter, it looks like, so wear a jacket if you're in England. If you're in the, I don't know, Barbados or something, I hope you're enjoying the heat. Anyways, thanks again. Peace.